Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Kratz, and I'm the Dean of the Weinberg Library, and I want to officially welcome you tonight to what is the 4th annual J. Nathan PhD Visiting Scholar Lecture Series entitled India, Ancient Culture, Democracy, which is sponsored by the Weinberg Memorial Library. Each year, the lecture series invites international diplomats and scholars to the University of Scranton to address issues that will enlighten and benefit our students, faculty, and the community at large. Its purpose is to enrich the intellectual life and share diverse cultures for both the University of Scranton and Northeastern Pennsylvania. Our current strategic plan at the university emphasizes an engaged, integrated, and global experience. And I emphasize tonight that global experience for our students. So what better than tonight's transformative international experience to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In the first 3 years, the series has featured distinguished representatives from the countries of Thailand, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia. A special thank you to Dr. Nathan for his endowment, which makes this event possible each year. Dr. Nathan is currently the Professor of Management at St. John's University in New York and has served as a Fulbright scholar in several countries. Dr. Nathan has traveled and lived and researched and lectured in numerous countries. And to quote him personally, my first Fulbright was in the Kingdom of Thailand, and it changed my life. I have been transformed by the experience. We can all learn from each other. When we do, we are all better off. I want to also add that Jay has recently joined the Fulbright Association Board of Directors. Our esteemed guests have been busy today, meeting with our university administration and academic leadership, and now with all of you. So please join me in welcoming to the podium tonight's program moderator, Dr. Darla Gurmarov, the Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, who will do the official introductions. Darla.
Good evening, and thank you, Dean Kratz, for your introduction. Thank you, audience, for being here this evening to share with us this night of enjoyment, because we'll have a special feature at the end of this night of education, as we have a video of an ambassador and a night of further enrichment, as we have one of our consulate generals here. Is that correct? Okay, good. Okay. We will have time for questions and answers after our speakers, and then later, after the program concludes, we will have refreshments over in the McDonald fireplace room, which is out this door to the left and then down the hall to the left. So let me begin first by, I don't know, Dr. Nathan, were you introduced? I mean, I know you were referenced.
Well, I think Dean did that already.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Good, because I wanted to make sure that you were recognized.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our featured speaker tonight, unfortunately, was not able to be here. However, she has sent us a video presentation, so we'll be able to have her here in celluloid. This is, our keynote speaker is Ambassador Riva Ganguly Das. She's the General Consul of India in New York. She joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1986. And most recently, before joining the Indian Embassy in New York, she was in Romania, Moldova, and Albania. Thank you. If we could have the person hit the play button on the video. Oh, I guess I could have done that.
I'm delighted to be talking to all of you through this video message. I would like to first and foremost wish Professor J. Nathan all the best for organizing this wonderful event, India, Ancient Culture, Democracy, the panel discussion, which is going to take place very soon. I was looking forward to attending the panel discussion myself, but unfortunately could not make it. I think as India-US relations have grown and developed, and as the contacts between our countries have increased, it is important to organize events such as this to have a better perspective of India, which is an incredibly complex and diverse country. I always say that to come to conclusions about India on the basis of a little bit of information and facts is always is not a very wise thing to do, because India does not lend itself to easy conclusions or easy understanding. It's a country of it's a young nation. We are only 70 years old as an independent country, but we are a country of history which goes back to thousands of years. And India is probably one of the few countries where there is a direct connection between our past, our ancient history, and today's modern world. It's not uncommon to have an Indian wake up in the morning, recite shlokas which were composed thousands of years back, and then go to the office and write a software program which is used by under 15 years of age. So it's incredibly, there are lots of contradictions which you see in India, which are always very interesting, and I would encourage scholars, students interested in India to examine these and see what an interesting country this is. The fun fact about India, which I would like to share, is that we are a country at the crossroads of history. Many conquerors have come to India, many wanting to go back, but very few have been able to go back from India. India's pull is such that people come to India with the intention of conquering and going away, but this has not. But they stay back and make India their home. We have benefited from these interaction that we've had with the rest of the world. Our own culture has to the east, to the west. We are the land of all the major religions of the world have a presence in India. Be it Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism. So it's from any perspective you find India an incredibly diverse and multicultural society. I'm sure you are going to have a wonderful panel discussion, and I would love to come to the university sometime at a later date, and I wish all of you great success at this panel discussion and conference. Thank you so much.
That's very nice.
The speaker who will be joining us now after this presentation is Dr. Vidhu Nair. He's the Consul General of India in New York. He began his service work, I should say, when he joined the Embassy of India in Berlin in October of 2004. He is here tonight to present his information for us. Ambassador, please, may you take the podium?
Well, distinguished guests, Professor Kratz, Professor Jayanathan, I indeed feel greatly honored to have been invited by the University of Scranton today for this program on India. At the outset, let me express my sincere gratitude to the university authorities, especially Professor Nathan, for giving me this great opportunity. For any Indian diplomat, it's indeed a great challenge, as much as it is a great honor and privilege to talk about his or her country abroad. because India is not a homogeneous entity that can be depicted in terms of a single language, race, ethnicity, or religion. Therefore, before I begin, I have to emphasize that the country that is now known as India existed as a geographical and political entity inhabited by various groups since time immemorial. Although the country has been an independent nation for only about 70 years now, it's home to an ancient civilization. So because of the highly heterogeneous nature, the Indian culture is not amenable to a simplistic interpretation. A fact that Consul General said through her video message. In fact, it would be a grave mistake to define the country based on superficial information. And it's easy to reach wrong conclusions if one does not understand the country in depth. So this is the introduction that I want to give before I start speaking about India, ancient culture, and democracy. Our worldview has been inspired by our existence at the crossroads of various cultures, enriched by continuous and extended periods of interaction, both with the West and the East, primarily through the coastal region, especially Malabar and Coromandel Coast, as well as the caravan routes that linked us to China and the East Central Asian parts. India was home to the ancient Indus Valley civilization, which is well known to all of us, one of the greatest civilizations of all times, one of the most modern civilizations at that time. India was also home to a lot of wealth, and attracted by its prosperity, a lot of people came to India, be as merchants, traders, explorers, or even invaders. India offered them not just historic trade routes, but also a place where they could set up their empires. So various cultures intermingled and existed in our country for many centuries. It is this assimilation of cultures that make India unique. Its capacity to absorb and adapt various ethnic groups provides it with the quintessential elasticity that has acted as a fulcrum for its advancement in all spheres. This is amply visible in the fact that many conquerors came to India to loot its wealth, but decided to make this country their home and settle here. India is also home to all the major religions in the world. Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, and Hinduism originated there. Jainism and Buddhism they actually trace back before the Christ period. Buddhism especially, although it didn't become popular in India, it spread to the neighboring countries where they still flourish. Sikhism was a relatively younger religion, essentially originated in the northern part of India, but thanks to the migration of Punjabi population across the world, it's present around the globe. Christianity, we had an illuminating discussion on the origin of Christianity in the world, and I shared a well-known episode that we, back in India, believe that one of the apostles of Jesus Christ visited the southern coast of India, which is called Kerala, as early as AD 52 and proselytized the native population. There are diverse claims as to who he converted and who those early Christians were. A section of the population believed that they were the native population of Indians themselves, but other school of thought says that it could also be the Jewish population which had settled even before the Jesus Christ was born. So the long and short of it is that Christianity is perhaps older in India. It came to India at a much early date, even before it was introduced to Europe. Similar is the case with Judaism. The oldest synagogue in Asia is located in Cochin in Kerala in India. Islam also came to India in its very first century of existence, and the first mosque in India was established again in Kerala. So there was this traders route through which, maritime trade route through which most of the traders from the West Asian, Middle East part used to come to India. So All of them were welcomed by the local kings. They, in fact, gave merchandise rights to them and allowed to propagate their religions. This actually didn't lead to any sort of communal conflict, which is the inherent strength of India. We have this inherent strength of adaptation of all kinds of religious faiths. And everybody prospered in a sort of enabling environment. Further fillip to Christianity was given through the colonial rule, especially the Portuguese. What you now see in Goa and southern part of India partly are also because of the proselytization drive by the Portuguese. There is another small religion called Zoroastrianism, which again exists in India, the followers of which came from Iran, following the persecution there after the advent of Islam there. So we accept all religions as our own, and everybody has room to develop and grow. Till about 1500 AD, India was the largest economy in the world. At that time, of course, there was no United States of America, but in the following 3-4 centuries, we saw, unfortunately, a downward trend, especially during the European colonialist period, where India's share of world GDP was, in the beginning of 1500 AD, it was more or less close to what Europe had, about 22 to 23%. But by about 1947, when India gained independence, it shrunk to almost 3.5%. So after the independence, we've been trying to revive the economy. It's been a tough struggle. Many people had written us off, including noted historians, especially with the diverse population that we have. It was doomed to collapse. One of the historians actually put India like this: if India were a startup in 1947, I wouldn't have ever invested in it. So that sums up it all. However, the country has proven the naysayers and the doomsday prophets completely wrong through its resoluteness and hard work, buttressed by the strong vision of its leaders. Our leaders actually emanated from a cross-section of the population, regardless of caste, class, and economic power, and gender as well. We had a lot of women leaders as well. When you consider the fact that some of the European countries, some of the most advanced countries, and even the United States gave women enfranchisement as late as in the dawn of 20th century, we were one of the very few countries which gave women the right to vote from the very beginning itself, from the very existence of its country as an independent nation. Today, India is the 6th largest economy in the world. In absolute terms, and in purchasing power parity terms, it's the 3rd largest economy in the world. We are also one of the youngest nations in the world, with more than 50% of the population below the age of 25 years. Within 2 decades of independence, we achieved self-reliance in food production, which was unthinkable for a country suffering from famine just a few years ago. We not only became self-reliant in food production, but also started exporting food grains. Today, we are also world's leading producer of food grains, fruits and vegetables, spices, cash crops, milks, and eggs. The country is also home to one of the largest scientific and technical manpower in the world, although many, or at least a part of them, also immigrate to the United States. So if you see the academic institutions in the United States, you see a lot of Indian origin academicians who have actually risen to the levels of deans and chairmen of universities. So how did India survive and flourish as a modern state post-independence? Our strength lies in the fact that the Indian society firmly believes in pluralism and coexistence. Our independence struggle was a national movement, with its leaders coming from all nooks and corners of India, with the sole objective of overthrowing the behemoth of colonial power. This inclusive movement helped in no less way in forging a strong sense of nationhood post-independence, wherein regional and other subnational identities would be subsumed effortlessly. Our freedom fighters adopted a very novel strategy of non-violent struggle under the leadership of our father of nation, Mahatma Gandhi, to achieve the goal of independence. The founding fathers of modern India laid special emphasis on social reforms and empowerment of women and the underprivileged. Very early on itself, there were attempts to uplift the socially deprived classes from discrimination and poverty through affirmative action. Women were part of the decision-making process from the very beginning. Democracy was enshrined in the constitution as much as secularism. In order to make the administration easier and smoother, various states were created primarily based on language. The parliamentary system followed in the country ensured that people directly elected their representatives, while at the same time, eminent personalities also got their say in the decision-making process through the upper chamber of the parliament. In the last general elections held in May 2014, more than 65% of the eligible electorate of 815 million people voted and participated. This was the largest democratic election process held in the world so far, but also the largest ever mobilization of human beings on the planet. By and large, our elections are devoid of any untoward incident. The use of electronic machines is quite popular, and that ensures that the results are declared promptly. There is a clear division of powers between the legislative, executive, and the judiciary arms of the government, with each exercising its own checks and balances, ensuring good governance. The existence of independent judiciary has been a hallmark of the Indian democracy. This, coupled with the free press, equal rights, and equality before law, have made the citizens empowered in a participative democracy. The other salient feature of the Indian nation has been a deep commitment to secularism, which in the Indian context is slightly different from what it is in, elsewhere in the world. Secularism in India means non-interference of, it not just means non-interference of religious entities in the affairs of the state, but also that there is no state religion. There's no religion declared as a state religion and thus receiving state patronage. All religions are free to, are accorded equal rights and are free to set up their education institutes and also engage in religious activities. This has contributed immensely to religious tolerance and coexistence. Despite attempts to disrupt the communal harmony, India by and large has been immune to large-scale religious and sectarian conflicts, as can be seen in many other parts of the world today. Similarly, linguistic diversity was expected to sow the seeds of disturbances in India. We have 22 scheduled languages, which are kind of officially recognized languages, but there are more than 1,600 dialects. So you can imagine the kind of linguistic groups that are present in India, which was obviously one of the reasons for concerns at the beginning of our independence. However, on the contrary, all linguistic groups have prospered over the years, since all languages have been given equal importance, without any of them getting upper hand over the other. This, in turn, has helped each one of them to develop its own literature in the given space. Currently, as I said, there are 22 scheduled languages, and Hindi, the most spoken language, is our official language, and is spoken by, I guess, more than 70% of the population. Surprisingly, a vast section of the Indian society also, especially the educated ones, also speak and converse with in English, which is the unofficial lingua franca, at least in the official circles. This is a very interesting situation where no single language is imposed on anybody, but at the same time, if you take any particular Indian, he or she would be able to speak at least 3 languages. His mother tongue, Hindi, and most probably English. This enabling environment has facilitated the development of media and entertainment industry as well. Most of the linguistic groups have own film industries. You name them as Bollywood, Tollywood, Mollywood, and Collywood. There are many of those. The modern India represents a country that takes pride in its cultural heritage, but at the same time adapts itself easily to modernity. As the Consul General mentioned in her video message, it's not uncommon to see a person rising early in the morning and chanting, his ritual and Vedic hymns, and then go and work in the office in front of the computer and all the high-tech work, which is part of the daily life now in India. This way of life has helped Indians gain a sense of pride and confidence in their march towards modernity, at the same time root in their ancient tradition and heritage. The civil society has become highly active with the introduction of Right to Information Act, where every common citizen can have access to every official information. There is a seamless presence of the non-governmental organizations that have also ensured a lot of transparency in every walk of life. India's soft power in terms of its music, dance, cuisine, and the quintessential Bollywood have pervaded the entire globe, and it's ubiquitous. Today, Gandhi and Tagore are global icons, and they are actually inspirational forces to people of all faith and color. In the last few decades, India has undergone transformational changes, thanks to the landmark reforms that successive governments have undertaken. As a result, we are the fastest growing major economy in the world. Our economic growth in 2015-16 was 7.6% and is expected to maintain that growth trajectory well above 7% in the coming years. India is often considered, as the chief of IMF, Christine Lagarde, mentioned, the shining star in the global economy today. The interesting thing is that India not only weathered the the global financial crisis, but also acted as the anchor to global growth when growth was receding elsewhere in the world. Today, our country stands at a turning point in history, with the government committed to accelerating the pace of economic reforms and transforming the lives of the millions. Our Prime Minister himself said once, and I quote, "Reform is not the end in itself. Reform for me is just a way station on the long journey to the destination. The destination is the transformation of India." At least some of you may be aware of some of the major initiatives that the new Indian government undertook soon after it assumed power 3 years ago. Some of the landmark initiatives aimed at basically transforming the society and providing basic amenities to the marginalized sections of the society, like Clean India, for example. There is an effort at the national level to maintain hygiene all around, not just in cities, but also in villages, and starting from home. It's a nationally driven initiative which has been funded by the World Bank. Similarly, there's a move called Make in India, which is aimed at making India a manufacturing hub in the world. Currently, as many of you would know, there are only a handful of countries who are really into manufacturing: Japan, China, Germany, and probably the United States. So we are aiming to increase our share of manufacturing in our GDP from 15% as currently to 25%. This is also done with the objective of providing millions of youth employment opportunities. Similar to the Make in India initiative, there is also an initiative to provide skill development to the youth through the Skill India initiative. The most important is the Digital India initiative, where just about everything has been digitalized, including the service delivery, including the payment. And it's not uncommon these days to see even common man on the street using his mobile app to pay his electricity charges and his repayment of his loans without even approaching the bank. So this was not something that could be imagined maybe 5 years ago. This is a kind of transformation that the country is witnessing. There is also a nationwide movement to provide bank accounts to people who have not been having any bank accounts so far. And the latest data shows that there are over 270 million bank accounts have been opened after this initiative was launched, and almost $10 billion worth of money has been deposited in those accounts. So imagine the scale of any kind of initiative undertaken in India. There are many other initiatives. The most important one is the tax regime. As I speak here, the Indian Parliament is debating on the so-called goods and services tax, which is a reform of the indirect tax regime in India, whereby the tax regime has been simplified and is expected to spur the economic growth further. We are also looking at diversifying our energy needs. A lot of emphasis has been laid on the renewable energy sector, and that's one area where United States and India can cooperate further. In a nutshell, I would say that India is a country that is undergoing a phenomenal change. What we need to do now is to see where the opportunity exists in terms of bilateral cooperation. As far as we are concerned, I think the United States has been one of our foremost partners in holistic development. Our bilateral trade has been in the range of $130 billion, and it is expected that in the next 10, 15 years from now on, it would shoot up to even $500 billion. So all efforts are on to engage more closely with each other. I think in the last 15 years, all the US presidents have visited India, with the former president visiting India twice during his tenure. I think we are on the same platform as far as the development agenda is concerned. We've had fruitful discussion on how to take forward our mutual cooperation in the sector of education, which is fast emerging sector for mutual cooperation. We've had some fruitful discussion on how to take them forward, and I'm happy to extend all my support and cooperation as far as University of Scranton is concerned, which is actually in the wide realm of the overall cooperation. I thank you, Professor Nathan, and all of you for giving me this opportunity. I can talk on and on. It's going to never end, but I think I have to stop somewhere. I'll be happy to take a few questions probably later on. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nair. We had a couple of persons join us while we had started this presentation. I'd like to go ahead and introduce them right now. Dr. Nathan, would you like them to join us up here at the front?
Yes, of course. They
Please.
can join right now.
Okay. Mr. Ramesh Patel, he is the chairman of the Federation of Indian Associations. Retired engineer and highly respected community leader. If you please come up here and join us, you'll be available for questions as well. And another member of our panel I'd like to introduce is Mrs. Shovna Patel, past president of the Federation of Indian Associations. And Dr. Nair, if you'd like to join us at the table as well, I will go ahead and field the questions. There are cards sitting there if you would like to write a question out and hand it to someone in the aisle, or you're more than welcome, if you're not shy, to go up to the microphone here in the aisle and voice a question to one of our panelists.
Thank you.
I have three questions, actually, which I would like to voice to our first speaker. One is about how India is being affected by climate change and what the prognosis is for future climate developments.
Time to hear
Climate change.
Can you answer it?
So yes, the first question is for Dr. Nair, is that correct?
Yes.
On climate change and how he foresees that in the future.
Well, we understand that climate change is an important aspect of overall development. We have voluntarily committed to certain emission norms. If you remember, we were also one of the co-sponsors of the Paris Climate Change Conference. We are aware of the challenges ahead. Our stand has been that the development should not be affected because of the targets set by the climate change, and therefore we have sought technical and other help from the developed economies to cut emissions and improve the energy efficiency. And I think we are working very closely with the global community on making sure that the concerns on climate change are addressed and the emissions are curtailed.
What about on issues that you cannot control, such as weather patterns?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I said, what about the issues that you cannot control, such as weather patterns, decrease in rain?
Well, weather pattern is something that affects people around the globe. I mean, it's not just that I sit in India and I enjoy my life there when somewhere else population is affected. It's a global phenomenon. I think it's the responsibility of the global community to address climate change as a global issue. But therefore, we need cooperation from all the major economies and all the major polluters as well. I'm sure that you all know who they are. So I think the most important thing is that we have a global forum to discuss, first of all, that there exists certain issues that need to be addressed, and the fact that our lives are getting affected. And in this space, if we continue uncontrolled, we won't see the kind of salubrious climate that we enjoy right now, maybe 10 years down the line. So it's a global issue. Nobody is working in isolation. It's important that the international community should come together and work for an amicable settlement, and everybody understands each other's concerns.
Okay, and I have also two other questions, which, as a Westerner, not too familiar with what the progress is. They're both, I would address them to whoever would like to take them, regarding social issues. I was wondering how prevalent the caste system still is in India, and how much of a source of strife this is amongst people. Yes. And also, we'll give you the second one along with that, which is about how if the dowry system is still an issue for women to be allowed to marry, or have the opportunity to marry, now that women have their own careers and their own source of wealth. So whoever would like to address this too.
Well, I think Mrs. Shobhana Patel will respond first on the dowry, and then she will respond to the caste system.
Good evening, everyone. It's very pleasure to us to be here in this university, and yes, you celebrating the India Fair. But that's the dowry is in the old age, in the ancient day they have a dowry, Also, when I got married, at that time also they have the dowry, but now we don't see any this kind of thing. The lots of rules and regulation is changes in India and becoming India more modern now because of our Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Modi, the globally well known, and he is helping a lot to the old people, and also the people who is asking for dowry or stuff like that they are not in India now. So I don't think so, but might be it is in old small villages. Still it's going on.
So it's more a problem amongst people who are less educated.
You can answer that.
What is your question, ma'am?
So is it more of a problem amongst people, or more of an issue amongst people who have, where the women have less education, less career opportunities?
You want to go? Okay. But it's India, as I said in my speech, it's a highly complex society. So if you take one particular issue, let's say dowry, if you ask me, does it exist in India? I would say yes, it does exist. But is the frequency coming down? Yes, especially in the urban area, especially amongst the educated people. It's part of a social transformation. It's part of empowerment of women, which is taking place. But then, given the enormous size of the population, given the diverse nature of the Indian population, it's easier said than done that you initiate a particular scheme or undertake an initiative, and then this particular problem is addressed in let's say 10 years from now. No. It's a gradual transformation, and we have to give it time to have all these problems gone away from the Indian society. Having said that, the system of dowry was in one way or the other, at least in some parts of India, were considered to be part of an empowerment process, whereby the girl, when she gets married, was given a certain portion of her parents' property on her own name. I mean, it doesn't go on to the groom, but to her own name as a part of making her financially stable. So it's also part of an interpretation as to how do you see this. But then there are misuse of the system, as it happens in any part of the world. Therefore, I wouldn't want to say that dowry doesn't exist, but it does exist. But then the frequency or the practice is getting diluted gradually, and there will be a time, people no more think about arranged marriages these days, especially in the urban areas. There is a lot of gender equality. Women themselves choose their partners these days. So, but at the same time, there is another India that is parallelly existing, but it's getting transformed gradually.
Thank you. The other question was about the caste system, if that's still something that exists and is a source of strife, and also, is it something that is comparable to, say, prejudices that exist in American culture?
Some sort of caste system is a sort of extension of the society that India has had from centuries. It still exists. But then a lot of initiatives have taken place to empower the underprivileged castes through reservation in jobs and education. So over a period of time, we have seen a lot of castes who were earlier labeled as backward have now begun to occupy positions of power and have become the new elites, with the result that the so-called forward castes in many areas have also become impoverished. So it's a very interesting scenario now. So there are talks of giving reservation based on financial status these days, regardless of caste. So the caste system at present is in a fluid state. There are, of course, there are groups which are still underprivileged. Efforts are on to bring them onto the mainstream, emanate from the centuries-old stigma of casteism. It's again an ongoing process. It's again part of the social development. I personally feel that when India gets devoid of caste system, and it's again it's the feeling of the individual. It's not something that the government alone cannot address. Every member of the Indian society, every Indian national has to feel that the caste is something that shouldn't matter to him or her. So it's also part of the individual development. So when the education takes upper hand, when reality of life creeps in, caste actually gets sidelined. It only gets a secondary role. So these changes may not happen today or tomorrow. It might take maybe 20 years, 50 years. But then when India reaches there, I think that would be the time when we can really say that we are there. We've reached at the global stage.
Do any of our other panelists have anything they'd like to add for any of those questions before we move on?
Or any other questions from the audience as well?
Certainly. There's a question on the far right.
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Come forward. You have the 3x4 cards. Write your questions. If your questions is not answered, we will get answered. At least we want to collect your interest on India and what aspects of India that you want to comment, or perhaps that you want to raise some issues. Thank you. Please write on those 3x4 cards.
Go right ahead, please.
I just have one question. I was very interested.
Better that the consulate answer.
Yeah.
Consulate answer the phone.
And how
Consulate
we
answer the
manage as a
question.
nation to deal with all these
Representing government.
and also to make it, because as a post-colonial nation, it's actually pretty incredible that you immediately, just very seamlessly, kind of, ended up with a thriving democracy. So my question was, is there something in the many cultures in India, the history of India, that sort of prepared the way for the democratic system that you have today?
That's an excellent question. And
I can say.
I think if you want
I
to,
didn't understand the question.
I think let us repeat the question. If this lady
Well,
asked,
I think I can answer to her query. I mentioned quite a few aspects of Indian democracy in my speech as well. We are inherently used to, seeing many cultures and many beliefs in our country. It's part of our life. We never question why the other person has a different color or belief or practice than me. So it's part of our syncretic tradition to grow up seeing parallel cultures. So our capacity and resilience for adjusting to diverse scenarios emanate from the very fact that we are a society that is attuned to, from the very beginning itself, from our earliest history onwards, diversity. So the democracy is something that has been our founding principles, and we firmly believe in democracy. In a diverse country like India, we all know that I actually belong to a so-called linguistic minority. Somebody else may say that he belongs to a religious minority. So there are diverse groups whose interplay is reflected at the federal level, and everybody understands the fact that coexistence and peaceful development are the recipe for success. So our democracy comes from the fact that we know that there is no alternative to development. If we were to have an authoritarian government tomorrow, the questions will be which group of population would that authoritarian regime would represent. There are, of course, ethnic and religious and caste groups who are represented in such a regime. So the people have themselves decided that democracy is the only way to go forward. There are big states and small states, and there was a time when people used to dispute whether the bigger states would take away the development agenda or take away the lion's share of the revenue. It didn't happen. The revenue was equally distributed in terms of population. So we have certain yardsticks from the right beginning itself that we have implemented strictly, and I'm glad that it has continued like that, and that's going to continue like that. I'm glad about it.
yeah, thank you, His Excellency, Your Excellency. But let me add this. India today is to be looked at from the history, 5,000 years of history. So you cannot look at what has happened in India last 400 years or 500 years or even 6 centuries. You have to go back to Indus Valley civilization and the places like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro. And if you look at present Afghanistan, which is part of, way back in ancient India, was part of that mosaic of Indian civilization. So that is considerable migrational movements to India from Central Asia. The Mughals came from Central Asia. So the other things about South India, and His Excellency referred to, the people moved from even Africa to South India through the Arabian Sea. This goes back to 5,000, where there's several, even some of the movements are even 15,000. So to understand the present context of India, you have to look at the ancient and also some of the Vedic text. And so the question, the democracy is ingrained in Indian culture, and it is much more ancient. And as Ambassador rightly pointed out, accepting differing point of view and religion, it's part of Indian gene. Let me say that. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, couldn't on a more pedestrian level, couldn't we? So that's always been a part of Indian tradition, yes?
Yes.
And my other question was, looking 5-10 years down the line at geopolitical status and competition with China for regional becoming the #1 power. Jiminy, how do you see India working her way through that in this competition with China?
I want to leave it to them. Yeah, leave it to you.
Well, you mentioned that China is our competitor and who is going to become #1 in Asia. We don't see it that way. We believe that there is room for development for everybody. Well, in that sense, when one nation progresses, we see that it actually helps us as well. China is our very important trade partner. One of the, it comes in the first 3 trade partners in terms of volume of trade. It has been like that for centuries. To see that China is a threat to India, we don't see like that. It's actually the interpretation of, let me say, many people in the West. Of course, there are concerns when our territorial integrity is questioned, when our security aspects are undermined. But at the same time, we have so much commonality with China that we think that we could address the issues on a platform where we sit with each other and talks about issues concerned. China has its own concerns about India. We have our own. So if we let those issues take upper hand, then we lose the bigger picture. There is room for both the countries to grow in Asia. We don't see, at least India doesn't see China as a threat to its existence. But then, of course, as a sovereign country, when our security concerns are directly under threat, then we actually have the freedom to exercise we will go out and protect our territorial integrity. But it's not that we consider China as an enemy #1 and then go all guns out against China. We have a lot of commonality, cultural similarities. I think Mao Zedong said once that India can go China without even sending a single soldier across Himalayas, in terms of Buddhism. So we do have differences, but it doesn't mean that these are not issues that cannot be addressed at all. Have I answered your query?
Hi. While we're on the topic of international relations, I have a few questions. Feel free to answer whichever you want. So first of all, you mentioned that bilateral trade might grow up to $500 billion worth. So how do you foresee that happening? How do you see, and this is the second question, how do you see the Trump administration possibly changing in any way relations between India and the US? And then finally, is brain drain considered a policy issue? Is India trying to do something about that, keeping educated Indians at home? Thank you.
I'll take your last question first. Now we don't say brain drain anymore. We say that it's a brain gain. Many of those who actually emigrated to the States and in other developed countries actually are coming back to India and setting up their industries and using the technical know-how that they gained during their stint abroad. Within India, many of the startup success stories in India can be attributed to the so-called non-resident Indians coming back to India and establishing their companies. So we don't actually see it that way. Well, of course, there is a section of Indian population who says that these students study on state-sponsored courses with heavily subsidized courses, and then all of a sudden they go abroad, and then some of them settle there, and then they contribute to the economic development of that country. It may be partly true, but then we can't stop human movement across the globe, and where there is a demand, people will always emigrate. And if you say that you don't go because you studied, because on state aid, it would be actually curtailing the freedom of movement. We don't do that. But then at the same time, we are also glad that the United States gets benefited out of our population. It's a win-win situation. We have had a number of exchanges between the United States and India in the last 3-4 years in particular. The U.S. government has accorded extreme priority to relations with India. In fact, President Obama described relations with India as a defining partnership of the 21st century. Our Prime Minister and our leadership are also keen to take it forward. The bilateral trade has got a lot of potential. There are diverse areas which are hitherto untapped. For example, pharmaceuticals. Even information technology, where India has a lot of competence, can be, leveraged to mutual advantages. There are a lot of barriers to easy trade, which is true with between any country. That exists even between India and US as well. It's only a matter of time that we sit together and discuss those issues on bilateral fora and try and resolve them amicably. So there are no specific platform which I can share with you that envisages increase in bilateral trade to 500 billion. But then this is part of the Delhi Declaration that President Obama and our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, signed during his former visit to India. So there are certain technical roadmap that has already been prepared, which I cannot unfortunately share in the public forum. But I think the most important thing is that the leadership of both countries have resolved to increase and strengthen bilateral economic cooperation. Defense is another area where US has far more interest than India in cooperating with our country. There are many other areas as well. So I think in the coming years we would see that United States emerges as India's top partner in business, which it is already, but we can always strengthen the bilateral cooperation in that area.
We have one last part of our presentation tonight, so I'm sorry I'm going to have to call an end to the question and answer period. But I do want to thank Dr. Vidhu Nair, Dr. Jay Nathan, Mr. Ramesh Patel, and Mrs. Shobna Patel for being here with us tonight. Our last part of the program is Miss Kambari Sridhar. She is here from New York City. She's a student of Guru Malini Srinivasan, who's a New York-based, and here I'm going to mispronounce this, it's a type of dance, Bharatanatyam dance? Is that, how do you say that, Doctor?
Bharatnatyam.
Bharatanatyam.
Bharatnatyam.
Bharatnatyam.
Natyam means dance.
It means dance, okay. It is a traditional, ancient dance of India, originated in Hindu temples in a specific region of India. Ms. Sridhar has been performing with the Malini Srinivasan dancer troupe since 2008. She's toured with that company in the United States and Switzerland. She has herself choreographed and presented performance art. She is, after 10 years, she did her debut dance in, I believe, January, early of this particular year. And she is going to be performing for us tonight. So may I ask you to join me in welcoming Ms. Barikadram, let me try that again. Ms. Karambare Sridhar.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to Professor J. Nathan for inviting me here to perform with an august audience present. I'm going to perform 4 short pieces from the classical art form of Bharatanatyam. It's an art form that's traditionally performed in South India. It was originated there in the state of Tamil Nadu, and it's very much vibrant here in the United States, and I hope to be a representative of what we do here in America. I'm going to start with a Pushpanjali, which is a traditional flower offering. It has a short verse in Sanskrit where we describe the audience or the sabha, so you are the audience today. And it talks about a tree of knowledge, which has the Vedas or the 4 sacred texts in the Hindu religion as the branches from which the Shastras or the practical wisdom from the Vedas falling as flowers. And the audience or the sabha and the members of the sabha as the ones that are the bees that swarm to come and partake in this knowledge. And I believe since we are at a higher education institution, the University of Scranton, this would be appropriate as a way in which you as the audience members are partaking in the knowledge and the wisdom that we have had to share here at the India Lecture Series.
दित्तोडगदं तातै तत्तोडगदं तन्दगदगदग दिन्दिगि दिगि दिगि दित्तोडगदं तातै तत्तोडगदं तगदित्तोडगदं तगदिगिदोडगदं तगदिगिदोडगदं तगतत्तोडगदं तगतोडगदं दित्तोडगदं दिगिदोडगदं तत्तोडगदिमिदं तगतोडगदिमिदं दिगिदोडगदिमिदं जेकिनंगु तकदित्तदिकिट तकता तरितजं तगतरितजं जेकिनंगु तकदित्तदिकिट तकता तरितजं तगतरितजं जेकिनंगु जेकिनंगु तदिंगिनतु 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 सभा कल्पतरु भाति वेद शाखोपशोभित है सभा कल्पतरु भाति वेद शाखोपशोभित है शास्त्र पुष्प समाकीर्णो विद्वद्भ्रमर संयुतः शास्त्र पुष्प समाकीर्णो विद्वद्भ्रमर संयुतः सभा कल्पतरु भाति वेद शाखोपशोभित है शास्त्र पुष्प समाकीर्णो विद्वद्भ्रमर संयुतः सनि सरि सनि सगम पगम प नि प मग प नि प सनि सनि सरि सनि सगम पगम प नि प मग प नि प सनि सरि ग मग मरि सरि नि स प नि म प मग म प नि स म प नि स प नि स सभा कल्पतरु भाति वेद शाखोपशोभित है शास्त्र पुष्प समाकीर्णो विद्वद्भ्रमर संयुतः
Thank you. The next item is called Gaiye Ganapati. It's a bhajan by a very popular saint in the northern part of India, Tulsidas, and it's a bhajan in Hindi. Typically, Bharatanatyam items are not danced in Hindi, so this is a very unique choreography, and it shows the linguistic diversity of India, where, there are thousands of languages spoken, Hindi being one of the most popular ones.
गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन
Takkudu dikkudu takkudu dikkudu datto ragatam. Takkudu dikkudu takkudu dikkudu datto ragati. Takkudu dikkudu takkudu dikkudu datto ragatam. Takkudu dikkudu takkudu dikkudu ditto ragati. Takkudu kudu dikkudu kudu takkudu kudu dikkudu kudu takkudu dikkudu takkudu dikkudu dalang gutaka dikka dikka thum tadikku ding guta ding guta gutaka targadam takka ding guta ding guta gutaka targadam tadikku ding gutang gutang takita ding gutang gutang takita tadik ding guta takka ding guta tadikku ding guta takka tadik guta takita takita takum targadam kum dargadam kum dargadam kum dargadam kum dargadam kum dargadam
गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन 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 शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन सिद्धि सदन गज वदन विनायक सिद्धि सदन गज वदन विनायक कृपा सिंधु सुंदर सब लायक कृपा सिंधु सुंदर सब लायक सिद्धि सदन गज वदन विनायक सिद्धि सदन गज वदन विनायक कृपा सिंधु सुंदर सब लायक कृपा सिंधु सुंदर लब लायक गाइए गणपति जगवंदन गाइए गणपति जगवंदन मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगलदाता मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगलदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगलदाता मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगलदाता मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगलदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता
जम तरी तक तरी जन जन देगी तरी जम तरी तक तरी धन धन देगी तरी
विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता
तरिक तधन तजनु तधिमि ततरिक तधन तजम जम तो
विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता
किणी 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 किणी
विद्यावारिधि बुद्धि विदाता मोदक प्रिय मोद मंगल जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन मांगत तुलसी दास कर जोरे मांगत तुलसी दास कर जोरे बसे राम सिय मानस मोरे बसे राम सिय मानस मोरे मांगत तुलसी दास कर जोरे मांगत तुलसी दास कर जोरे बसे राम सिय मानस मोरे बसे राम सिय मानस मोरे गाइए गणपति जगवन्दना गाइए गणपति गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन शंकर सुवन भवानी नंदन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन गाइए गणपति जगवन्दन
I was wondering for the non-Indian audience here, did you get the elephant reference throughout the piece? Because that was the whole point of the piece, was showing the elephant-headed god Ganesha. So he had these elephant ears and the trunk and the tusk. And he's also someone that's known to be the giver of knowledge, someone with endless compassion, and that's one of the reasons why he's one of the most beloved gods. I mean, goddesses are great too, but beloved gods of the Hindu pantheon. For my third piece, I chose something very secular, so it has no religious connotations. However, it's all about a universal emotion that we all have probably experienced at some form in our lives, that's love. In this song, it's called Yar Kagilam Bayama in the language Tamil. And here, there's a heroine who hears that the community has all these stories about her and her lover. So they're all gossiping around. And so she wants to dispel the myth and say, why should I be afraid to fall in love with my man? It's not a closed-door secret. Let me open the doors. Please come and experience the kind of love I feel from my beloved. Why should it be a scandal when we both consent and we both are mutually accepting of what we feel for each other? And so she tells this to her friend, and then she has this reference saying, if I were to fall in love, it's like sitting on a mad elephant that's trying to pass through this tiny little gate. Do you think it's going to squeeze through? No, it's going to break open the door and fall in love. And that's how she expresses the kind of feeling she has for her lover, who is supposedly the stud of the town. So he has won many wars. He's very good in archery. He's brave. He's also very handsome, and that helps a lot. So, Padam Yarakagilam Bayama.
Yare
The final piece for today's evening is the Palana, which is typically performed at the end of the show or to mark the end of the show. It's a sequence of pure rhythmic expressions which are like stylistic of this art form. So it will be a good opportunity for you to see what this style is about through this song. Usually the Tilana ends with a short verse, and this is in the language Telugu, also another language widely spoken in the southern part of India. And it's in praise of a king, Sri Krishna Rajendra, who was one of the kings that was a big patron of the arts. And in the earlier part of the 13th and 14th centuries, a lot of kings patronized arts, and a lot of the art and expression of this form grew and enhanced through the dance and the choreographies of the courtesans. So this is in praise of one of those kings. This Tilana is choreographed by my teacher, Miss Malani Srinivasan. She unfortunately could not be here because she just gave birth to a baby, which is why I'm representing Malani Srinivasan and dancers. And I hope you guys had a nice evening and enjoyed the performance so far. Thank you.
The
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. That concludes our program for the evening. We have had our taste of India, ancient culture, democracy. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here this evening and invite you to join together in the McDonald Fireplace Room for some refreshments. Hope you have a good evening. Thank you very much for being here.